The sound of the bell still echoes across the decades, a sharp, metallic ring that always signaled the beginning of a magnificent battle. But look closer, past the blinding flashbulbs and the roar of the crowd, and you see something deeper in the ring's corner. Two men breathing hard, ready to change the world. In the 1970s and 80s, few figures on screen held the electric charisma and sheer presence of Apollo Creed. He wasn't just a character, he was a cultural statement, a confident, unapologetic champion who stood as an absolute icon among black actors. He was the undisputed king of sting, the master of disaster, a fictional legend played by a very real one, Carl Weathers. We admired the fighter's swagger, but we came to love the man's heart. Carl Weathers, the athlete turned artist, transcended the boundaries of race and genre, from the gritty boxing world of Rocky to the visceral terror of Predator and the futuristic authority in The Mandalorian. His 50-year career was a quiet, relentless dedication to the craft, often in the shadows of the blockbuster figures he stood beside. But what happens when the greatest fighter on screen is also the quietest man off screen? What is the true cost of that dignity? This is the story of Carl Weathers, a legend whose ultimate knockout came not in the ring, but far too soon in his own peaceful sleep, leaving behind a legacy that continues to inspire. The story of Carl Weathers begins not in the spotlight of Hollywood, but in the challenging landscape of New Orleans, Louisiana, specifically, the 7th and 9th wards. This was a place where life was lived close to the bone, a community that would later be tragically defined by the devastation of Hurricane Katrina in 2005. Carl and his sister grew up very poor, children of the working class. His parents were hard-working people, though they lacked much formal education. Carl once spoke of his father in a 2013 interview with Ebony magazine, describing him as a very quiet man, very hard-working, possessing great wisdom despite little schooling. This early life, defined by quiet effort and resilience, laid the foundation for the man the world would later know. In those early days, young Carl found his escape and inspiration not in the tough streets, but on the big screen. He was captivated by cinematic giants like Sidney Poitier and Harry Belafonte, men who carried dignity and power in an era where roles for black actors were often limited. He also loved watching classic Western movies, drawn to the archetypes of honor and action. The earliest hint of his true calling came in the 5th grade. Carl was in a school play, and that moment, facing an audience, became an undeniable turning point. He recalled the sensation of hearing the audience laughing, clapping, and cheering for him. He described it as a natural high that he wanted to feel forever. He had caught the acting bug, and he continued to pursue it through school plays, musicals, and even joining the choir. Yet, Carl quickly realized a practical truth in high school: the girls seemed to favor the guys who played sports. This pragmatic observation, coupled with a desire to stay out late and avoid being stuck at home all the time, pushed him into athletics. He approached sports with the same determination he brought to acting, trying out and making the team for virtually every sport imaginable: boxing, gymnastics, judo, soccer, wrestling, all of it. Football, however, was where he truly excelled. By the 8th grade, his talent earned him an athletic scholarship to St. Augustine High School, a private school. He later moved to California, playing for Long Beach Poly High School before attending Long Beach City College. This commitment paved the way for a scholarship to San Diego State University. Here, Carl Weathers embraced both his passions. While playing as a linebacker for the Aztecs, his team achieved an impressive 20-0 record with one tie in 1968 and 1969, winning the Pasadena Bowl. Crucially, he majored in theater and continued acting in plays even as he dominated the gridiron. In 1970, Carl Weathers took the next step, pursuing a professional football career. He signed as a free agent linebacker with the Oakland Raiders, playing for the legendary coach John Madden. That year was monumental as the AFL and NFL merged, forming one league with two conferences, and the Raiders became part of the AFC Western Division. The Raiders went 8-4-2, reaching the conference championship before losing to the Baltimore Colts. Carl played in 7 games that season. However, football proved to be a fleeting chapter. In 1971, the Raiders released him after moving him to strong safety. He then signed with the BC Lions in the Canadian Football League, CFL, playing until 1973 before retiring from the sport entirely. The hiatus was short-lived. In 1974, Carl Weathers returned to his true calling, earning a bachelor's degree in drama from San Francisco State University. His journey as an actor officially began. By 1975, he had already appeared in blaxploitation movies like Bucktown and Friday Foster, and secured a role in an episode of the iconic show Good Times, an episode where he played an angry husband confronting JJ over a painting. He quickly followed this with roles in Kung Fu, 1975, and a memorable turn as a loan shark in Starsky and Hutch, 1976. The stage was set, the preparation complete. Carl Weathers was a seasoned athlete and a trained dramatic actor, carrying the quiet power of his New Orleans roots and the drive of a true competitor. But nothing could prepare him, or the world, for the role that would change everything, vaulting him from supporting player to global icon. He was about to step into the ring, and the name on his satin robe would be Apollo Creed. The year 1976 marked the definitive shift in Carl Weathers' career. He walked into the audition for Rocky, a small film written by an unknown actor named Sylvester Stallone, and his life changed forever. The story behind his casting has become Hollywood legend. When reading the script with Stallone, Carl felt the chemistry was lacking. In a moment of audacious confidence, the very swagger that defined his future character, he yelled out that he could do a lot better if he got him a real actor to work with. Stallone, who was both the writer and the star, told him simply, "I am the writer, and the actor, Rocky." From that spark of confrontation, the dynamic duo was born, and Carl landed the part of Apollo Creed. Rocky was a phenomenon. Made on a tiny budget of only $860,000, it exploded at the box office, earning over $225 million. But beyond the money, it became a cultural touchstone. Apollo Creed, the heavyweight champion of the world, was immediately captivating. He was modeled after the great Muhammad Ali, charismatic, powerful, and full of showmanship. For black actors at the time, this role was a monumental breakthrough. Creed was not a sidekick or a victim, he was the apex of his profession, representing excellence, style, and undeniable cool. Carl Weathers had successfully translated his background as an athlete and his training as a dramatic actor into an icon. The success continued. In Rocky II, 1979, after the controversial split decision of the first film, the rematch brought down the house, and Creed's transition from rival to friend began. In Rocky III, 1982, Carl Weathers solidified the character's transformation. When Rocky loses everything, Apollo steps in, not just as a mentor but as a true brother, helping Rocky train to defeat the terrifying Clubber Lang, played by Mr. T. This was the moment Creed became beloved, teaching Rocky the confidence and showmanship he needed, cementing a bond that transcended the screen. During this peak, Carl Weathers briefly explored his musical side. He had been singing in the choir as a child and was part of a high school group covering artists like Otis Redding and James Brown. In 1981, he released a single titled, "You Ought to Be With Me," and its B-side, "That's Love Calling," inspired by Teddy Pendergrass. It showed a versatility that went beyond the confines of the boxing ring. The 1980s saw Carl Weathers leverage his fame to become a major action star, standing shoulder to shoulder with the genre's titans. In 1987, he landed the role of Colonel Dillon in Predator, sharing the screen with Arnold Schwarzenegger and Jesse Ventura. The film became an underrated classic, a high-octane blend of action and sci-fi. Carl embraced the competitive environment on set, engaging in daily workouts with Schwarzenegger and Ventura to see who had the best physique. He even credits Schwarzenegger with introducing him to the habit of smoking cigars during that time. The following year, he starred in Action Jackson, 1988, a high-profile action vehicle where he played the titular character, Sergeant Adam "Action" Jackson. The movie was a hit in its era, showcasing his leading man quality. His performance earned him a nomination for an NAACP Image Award for Outstanding Actor in a Motion Picture, though he lost to Denzel Washington for Cry Freedom. This solidified Carl Weathers as an elite figure among black actors of the decade, capable of carrying major studio projects alongside his boxing legacy as Apollo Creed. Carl Weathers had not just achieved fame, he had achieved a lasting, resonant presence in the pop culture landscape. His characters were strong, honorable, and intensely human. But the success came at a cost, both physical and professional, and the next chapter would test his resilience far more than any championship fight. The biggest shock in the career of Carl Weathers came in 1985, not with a bad review or a box office flop, but with a punch that resonated worldwide. In Rocky IV, the magnificent Apollo Creed stepped into the ring for an exhibition match against the imposing Soviet fighter, Ivan Drago. Apollo was full of spectacle and patriotism, dancing into the ring to James Brown's "Living in America." But the fight was brutal, and in a devastating, unexpected turn, Creed was killed in the ring by Drago's raw power. The death of Apollo Creed was more than a plot point, it was a traumatic event for an entire generation of filmgoers. The loss of such a vibrant, charismatic symbol was profoundly felt, a visceral moment of shock and mourning for a fictional hero. The image of the once invincible champion falling became one of the most memorable and painful moments in cinematic history. The drama was not limited to the script. While filming the intense boxing scenes with Dolph Lundgren, who played Drago, the aggression became too real. Lundgren was a little too aggressive, as reported, and threw Carl Weathers across the ring. Carl was so upset by the incident that he threatened to quit the movie. Production had to shut down for about 4 days before Lundgren and Carl Weathers could reconcile and continue filming, showing that the intensity of the fight was a boundary-pushing reality. While the on-screen injuries were legendary, the physical cost of being an action star took a heavy, hidden toll on Carl Weathers. In 1996, during the filming of the golf comedy Happy Gilmore with Adam Sandler, Carl performed a fall stunt that went terribly wrong. He injured his back severely. Carl Weathers fractured 2 vertebrae, and the chronic injury was so bad that his osteophytes, bony spurs, grew out and connected, causing his back to self-fuse badly. He was left in excruciating pain for 3 to 4 years after that fall. The man who embodied the peak of physical prowess was silently battling a debilitating condition, a poignant reality beneath the enduring image of the action hero. The fallout from his most iconic role also haunted him professionally. In the lead-up to Rocky Balboa in 2006, Sylvester Stallone requested permission from Carl Weathers, Mr. T, and Dolph Lundgren to use footage from their appearances in the earlier Rocky movies for flashbacks. Mr. T and Lundgren agreed, but Carl Weathers refused. He wanted an actual part in the movie, believing he deserved to be more than just archival footage, even though his character, Apollo Creed, had died in Rocky IV. Stallone refused to give him a role, leading Carl to prohibit the use of his image for any flashbacks. Stallone ultimately had to use footage of another fighter who looked like Carl. This disagreement highlighted the tension between an actor and his most famous creation, a testament to Carl Weathers' insistence on respect for his continued artistic value. The beef over the Rocky Balboa movie was real, a difficult chapter that saw him briefly estranged from the franchise that made him a household name among black actors worldwide. Through these years, from the sudden loss of Apollo Creed on screen to the quiet pain of a severe back injury and the friction with his collaborators, Carl Weathers demonstrated a personal resilience that mirrored the quiet strength of his characters. This was the true fight, a silent struggle against the physical toll and the control over his own legacy. Despite the friction and physical challenges, Carl Weathers ultimately earned his peace and secured his legacy. Years after the Rocky Balboa disagreement, he and Sylvester Stallone finally settled their beef and became friends again. This reconciliation paved the way for the Creed franchise, which served as a powerful continuation of the Apollo Creed story for a new generation. In Creed, 2015, the film centered on Adonis Creed, Michael B. Jordan, Apollo's son. Carl Weathers finally agreed to allow footage of him from the previous Rocky movies to be used throughout Creed. This act of grace acknowledged that the power of Apollo Creed transcended any personal disagreement and was a crucial thread connecting the history of the franchise. It allowed the memory of the original champion to mentor the next, a profound passing of the torch that resonates deeply within American storytelling. Carl Weathers also achieved a significant, late-career triumph in the modern landscape of streaming television. In 2019, he appeared in the Star Wars series, The Mandalorian, as Greef Karga. This role brought him widespread critical recognition, resulting in a Primetime Emmy Award nomination for Outstanding Guest Actor in a Drama Series. The show also utilized his long-standing, quiet passion for directing, with Carl Weathers credited as a director on the series. It was a fitting culmination of his journey, a respected figure, revered by a new audience, who was finally recognized for his dual talents as an actor and a creative leader. The sheer longevity and breadth of his work, from blaxploitation to prestige television, solidifies his importance among black actors. Carl Weathers opened doors by refusing to be categorized. He was an athlete, an action star, a comedian in Happy Gilmore, and a director. He demonstrated that black excellence belonged across all genres and platforms, never needing to be confined to a single lane. When Carl Weathers passed away peacefully in his sleep on February 1, 2024, at the age of 76, the outpouring of grief and respect confirmed his status as a quiet giant. Yet, a poignant detail remains. the man who gave us the legendary Apollo Creed and was nominated for an Emmy has yet to receive a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame. It is a stark reminder that sometimes, the greatest heroes are the last to receive their due recognition. Why? On February 1, 2024, the final bell rang quietly for Carl Weathers. He passed away peacefully in his sleep at the age of 76, leaving behind a legacy that is measured not just in box office numbers or nominations, but in the sheer dignity he brought to every role. The man who was once worried about being replaced by a real actor became one of the most respected figures in Hollywood, known for his wisdom and quiet strength. Carl Weathers was the epitome of the hyphenate career, athlete turned actor turned director. He took the discipline learned on the football field with the Oakland Raiders and the BC Lions and applied it to the demanding world of Hollywood, ensuring that black actors were seen not just as performers, but as creators. His work in The Mandalorian as both Greef Karga and a director earned him an Emmy nomination, showcasing a creative vitality that lasted into his final years. The character of Apollo Creed will forever be his most indelible mark. Creed taught us that sometimes the greatest rivals become the truest friends. But the story of the man who played him, Carl Weathers, teaches us about perseverance, the quiet courage to keep fighting for your place, even when nursing a severe, career-long injury sustained on a comedy set like Happy Gilmore. He didn't just play a champion, he lived like one, demanding respect even when it meant feuding with his own film family over Rocky Balboa. His spirit, like the unforgettable sound of a Rocky training montage, lives on. To the family of Carl Weathers, particularly his two sons, we hope the wisdom he shared, the quiet wisdom of his own father, guides their path. To the fans, we are left with a simple task. Carl Weathers, a legend who defined the American champion for decades, still lacks a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame. If the story of Carl Weathers, the iconic Apollo Creed, reminds you of the fight we all carry, to be seen, to be respected, and to be remembered, share this video. We read every comment, especially those urging the recognition he deserves. Let his legacy be his final black actor's victory.